Last Sunday, the last verse that we talked about was John 13:38. Then Jesus answered, "Will you really lay down your life for me? Very truly I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." The last part of the sermon last Sunday we were reflecting in lessons from Peter. Is what we talked about. Like in the last 2 chapters, we saw different interactions between Peter and Jesus. And then we were taking lessons from Peter and his actions and his behavior and his questions. Some of the reflections that we did was like, if Jesus tells you that you cannot do something, you cannot do it. But if Jesus tells you that you can, then you can. We were also saying, if Jesus is going to love you, don't stop him. Let him love you. Let him show you his love. Don't tell Jesus, you shall never. That's not your part in life. To tell Jesus, you shall never do that. You shall never say this. Jesus, you shall never show up in that place. I canceled that. That's not a good place. And then the last reflection was pay attention. Pay attention to what you're paying attention. Sometimes we're focusing on something, and our lives are interacting based on those things that we pay attention to, based on the voices that we are listening to, based on the things that we're consuming constantly. And those were the reflections from last Sunday. So why is it important for you to be here this morning? Why this sermon maybe is going to click on you or on your life right now? It's because there are moments when we feel as though we are on the wrong path. We wonder whom we can trust, and the emptiness within us begins to grow. At times, we even feel hopeless. We search for answers, but none seem to satisfy. Welcome to the sermon. He is the answer. Now we're jumping right now into chapter 14, verse 1. That's the verse after the one that I read. It says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." Now, in the context, I hope you're keeping the line of the things that are happening. Okay, Jesus was talking, and then they got together. Jesus washed the disciples' feet. Judas is going to betray Jesus. Judas left the room, and it was the night. And now Peter is like, and Jesus is like saying, "I'm going to leave, but you cannot come where I'm going." And Peter is like, "Why can I not come?" And then "I will lay down my life for you." That's the context. And Jesus is like, "Will you really lay down your life for me?" The next verse after that conversation is, "Do not let your hearts be troubled." And it's interesting because actually the situation is pretty troubled. Judas just left because he's going to betray Jesus. Jesus just told Peter, "You're going to deny me. You're going to disown me 3 times." And now he says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled." Because there are a lot of situations in life where things are going really crazy, really in the way that we don't want it. People that we love are doing things against us. The people that we trust in now, they are doing things against us. The friends that we had now, they are going to betray us. The people that I thought I can trust more is now going to deny me. That kind of situation when life, it's like that. It's a hard moment to be in. And we're not normally constantly in those situations, but there are seasons of life where that season looks like forever. It's like taking forever. I've been here for a long time, and I haven't been able to get out of the water and breathe a little bit. And Jesus is like, "Do not let your hearts be troubled." Now, I like the Common English Bible translation that says, "Don't be troubled, trust in God, trust also in me." The difference with the other one is the other one says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, you believe also in me." But the other one is more connected to the Greek. Don't be troubled. And it's an imperative. It's a commandment. Do not be troubled. And I don't think that he is denying the fact that you are going to be troubled in the situation, because circumstances are going to come to your life. And when things are difficult, it's not a time for smiling or laughing. It's a time for weeping and crying and mourning and thinking about things and all that. But also Jesus is saying, don't be troubled. And the other thing that we get from the Greek word is that it's a passive verb. So it's an action that you're receiving. It's not actually something that you are doing to yourself. It's an action that you're receiving. So in a way, it's like, do not let yourself be troubled by other people. That's what he's saying. Because the sorrow and the sadness, that's fine. He created us with those feelings. But the problem is when we let other people influence our trust and our situation, when we let other people bring their opinions and their voices into what I'm going through. Oh, you shouldn't be sad because everything's going to be like, oh, you should be doing great because you have a meal and yes, I have a meal, but this is still hurting me. The one thing doesn't have to do with the other one. Oh, why are you not happy? You don't have the Lord in your life? It's like, come on, I have the Lord in my life, but I still feel sad. I still feel sorrow. I still feel these things. And He actually put those things in me, so I think I can express them. So do not let others take away that you have, the things that you have. Now, trouble can be translated as to strike one's spirit with fear or dread. To strike one's spirit with fear or dread. And it's like there are some of the situations where we're going through, it's like, okay, we're sad, we're like thinking about the situation, but we trust in God. And then we let other people bring fear into our lives. And that's when the situation becomes complicated. Because when fear comes into our life, that's when anxiety comes up. And that's where I start thinking about all the negative things that can happen, all the bad things that can happen, all the things that I didn't do well, and all the things that I didn't say this, I didn't respect myself, I didn't put myself in this place. And then you start thinking about that, and then fear starts going up, and then you start making decisions based on fear. And that's actually what Jesus is telling you. Do not let fear overcome you. Do not let fear be the feeling how you're taking decisions. Because when you make those decisions based on fear, you start believing more in your strength than in the strength of the Lord. Because Jesus can do anything. Jesus can control everything. He was in the middle of that situation, and it seems that he was pretty chill in the situation. Judas, you're going to betray me. Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. He was about to die, and he was there washing disciples' feet. I will be probably overthinking, crying, I don't know, yelling, doing something, but I wouldn't be just washing people's feet during that season, Jesus feels pretty trusting in the process. And then he's saying, trust in me, trust in the Lord. So in the midst of tension, which is what they're going through at the time, in the midst of division, in the midst of betrayal, instead of trouble, instead of fear, Jesus is saying, trust in the Lord. Like, do not let yourself be full of fear, but trust in Him, in the one who can transform and change everything, in the one who can do anything out of this situation. Because He can do it. He can transform. He can ignite something out of anything. He can boost. He can bring light. He can bring hope. He can bring growth. When everything seems like nothing is good, nothing is going on here, like nothing is happening, you start making decisions based on fear. Because now it's like, but what if this? But what if that? But what if this? And what if that? And then you start making decisions based on fear. And that leads to a bad place. Jesus is like, do not let yourself be troubled. Do not let other people bring fear, because that fear is not coming from me. So my invitation is trust in God, trust in me. Operate more in trust than in fear. You may not believe in the circumstances. And that's Jesus is not saying like, believe in these circumstances, believe in this situation. He's saying trust in God. The circumstances may seem like horrible, like nothing good is going to happen out of this. Like Judas betrayed me, and right now, and Peter is about to do it. Like, what's good about this situation? And Jesus is like, trust in Him. Because He can do something out of this. Even if you cannot see anything good, God can do something beautiful out of this situation. Believe in God. Believe that what He's saying to you is truth. That you are worthy, that you are important, that you are loved, that you are forgiven. Believe in those truths, because sometimes what fear does is that it brings the opposite. Like, I'm not worthy, I'm actually not forgiven. I'm actually not good enough. I'm actually not this. I'm actually not loved. I'm actually alone in this situation. That's what fear is doing in your life. And that's why Jesus is like, trust in God, trust in me. Believe in the things that God and Jesus is saying about us. That what we are asking is going to be answered. That what He's promising us is going to be fulfilled. Believe in that instead of bringing fear into your life. That will make a difference in the situation. More fear, more betrayal, more denying, more of that, that's just going to mess the whole thing up more. Trust in God in the middle of that. Verse 2. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? I'm going somewhere that you cannot come. That's what Jesus said to Peter, or to everybody, and then Peter's like, why can I not come? I'm going somewhere. You cannot come right now, but there will be a place for you. There will be a beautiful place for you waiting over there. And I'm sure you have heard this verse multiple times in memorial services and those things. And I read something last year that got my attention. I just want to bring a different theological perspective that you can take it or leave it. That's fine with me. All right? M.T. Wright, one of the big theologians of this age, says in his book, Surprised by Hope, he says this: what does Jesus mean when He declares that there are many dwelling places in His Father's house? This has regularly been taken, not last when used in the context of bereavement, to mean that the dead, or at least the dead Christians, will simply go to heaven permanently, rather than being raised again subsequently to a new bodily life. But the word dwelling places here, monai is the Greek word for that, is regularly used in ancient Greek not for a final destination place, but for a temporary halt on a journey that will take you somewhere else in the long run. If you were not having a good morning, like this is blowing your head, I bet. But that's okay. The idea is, N.T. Wright is saying, normally when you think about that verse, you think that Jesus is talking about like heaven, and He's making a room for you, and at some point you're going to live in that place forever. Is that clear? That's what we probably think. Well, what N.T. Wright is saying, and he's taking, this is more not from the lexical, not from the Greek word, but more from the context of the book of John and the ancient context. That's what N.T. Wright is taking this from. He is saying that that Greek word doesn't mean a permanent place. That Greek word means a temporary place. It's like a hotel. It's like a lodge. So you're not going to live there. You're just going to go there for a little bit, and then something else is going to happen. And what else is going to happen? Well, heaven and earth are going to be new, are going to be made new. He's coming back, and He's coming down. You can see those signs in Revelation where it says that Jerusalem is coming down. It's not coming up. But then we also have this idea of like us going up into that dimension that Jesus is coming down from. But it's just interesting to think that we're always thinking that that is the place where I want to go and live. But actually it may not be theologically exactly right or correct or total or absolute, because there's also this possibility that that place that Jesus is talking about is a temporary place. I'm having a place for you, but then something else is going to happen. New bodily resurrection is going to happen. That's also what it says. Ezekiel was seeing the flesh is coming into the bones. Like resurrection is happening. Something else is going to happen. So I just wanted to give you that theological perspective. It's fine if you don't believe that. Actually, I don't worry much about what's going to happen afterwards. I really don't. That's not something that I worry about. There are all the things that I worry about, but that's not thing. Because if it's here on earth or there in heaven, if it's in a mansion, if it's in a street with gold and all that, I don't care. As long as I'm with Him, I'm fine. Here in Ontario or there in heaven, I'm fine with that. Okay? But it's also interesting to see that in verse 23, Jesus is going to say, and we're going to cover that later, but Jesus is saying in verse 23, Jesus replied, anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them. So Jesus is saying, like, I'm going somewhere you cannot come, but I'm going to prepare a place for you, and then you will come. And then verse 23, he's saying, now we're actually coming to you, and we're going to make a home with you. So you see those theological perspectives are not like totally clear about what he's talking about, but it makes sense when we're talking about the Holy Spirit and all those things. But also the idea is that Jesus is saying, like, I'm going somewhere, but he's not going to be a distant master. He's not going to be a distant Lord. We don't have a God that is just somewhere else just waiting for us, having fun with the people that is already there. Like, we don't have that kind of God. We have a God that is distant and present at the same time. We have a God that is in front of us and is inside of us. We have a God that is in China and it's also here. We have a God that is in Colombia and working in another place. We have a God that is personal, but it's also universal. We have that kind of God that is everything. And sometimes what happens is that we want this personalized kind of God, and we shape God in this particular way. When other people are seeing God in another way, you're like, no, that's not God. But we have a God that is big enough that he can cover multiple people. And we go back to the saying of, don't say, Jesus, you shall never. Because Jesus is talking about, I'm going to be gone, but I'm also going to be with you. And sometimes it's hard to understand that idea, because sometimes we feel like that. We feel that he's gone, but we also feel that he's here. And it's hard to get that idea from Jesus. I like also this Bible commentary from the New International Bible Commentary. And it says, many rooms. It's talking about those words. It says, Jesus has been rejected by the stewards of the house of God on earth. So he returns to eternal counterpart in heaven. I like that it says, Jesus has been rejected by the stewards of the house of God. But he's saying, in my Father's house, there are many rooms. Like when he came down, the house of God was the temple. And he was actually rejected by the leaders of the temple. Isn't that interesting that now he's saying, in my Father's house, there are actually many rooms. You have closed the doors to many people, including me. That's what Jesus is saying. But in my Father's house, there are many rooms. There are rooms for a lot of people, not just the people that you think, not just the 60 people that are here. There are many rooms in his Father's house. But I wonder how often we are like the people in the time that we're closing the doors of other people. We're saying, no, there are not enough rooms in here. No, there are not enough seats in this place for you. Oh, we don't have enough food for you. We don't have enough of this, which is what they did to Jesus. But Jesus is saying, in my Father's house, there are many rooms. A lot of people are going to be welcome. People that you think and people that you don't think are probably going to show up over there. Verse 3. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. Now, there's two perspectives on this. I mentioned this last Sunday, that there is the eschatological perspective and also the near future perspective. So he's talking about, there are two perspectives on this. Either he's talking about death, like crucifixion, death, and resurrection, and he's saying you're not going to be able to come with me because I'm going through this. Or he's also talking about like the ends of the day when he's coming back to judge the world. And I think those two theological perspectives are okay. You can see one way, you can see the other, you can see both, and they all make sense. Because in both cases, he's saying like, I'm going to die on a cross and I'm going to resurrect. You cannot come with me. But when he was on the cross, he told the person next to him, today you'll be with me. But Peter was not able to go with him at that point. But that man was going to be able. But then he came back out of that place to be again with them. You see? But then also he can be talking about when we think about Revelation, we think about the ends of the days. Like he is also talking about that. You're not going to be with me. You're not coming to me right now. But so why is this relevant? Because in the midst of chaos, in the midst of tension, in the midst of betrayals, in the midst of when you feel alone, when you feel there's no hope, it's good to remember that he's saying, I'm going to prepare a place for you. I'm coming to be with you. And then in chapter 4, later, he's going to say, I'm going to send the advocate. I'm going to send the helper. I'm going to send the Holy Spirit to be with you. And we're going to make a home with you. So in the midst of situations that are difficult, it's really important to remember and to believe that he is actually working on something in the midst of this. That he is actually going to do something beautiful in the midst of this. That this is not the end. Because there is something else that is happening and that is working and that is going on right now that we may not see. In the midst of this situation, he's still God. In the midst of this feeling, in the midst of loneliness, in the midst of depression, in the midst of betrayals, in the midst of denial, there is something beautiful happening at the same time. He is saying that, do not be troubled. I'm going somewhere. I'm going to have a place for you. And I'm also going to make a home with you. I'm going to send someone that is going to help you. So it's like those voices that we normally don't hear when we are in the midst of that situation. Because what we hear is fear. Everything is going to blow up. Everything's just going to go. Everything's going to die. I'm not going to be able to handle this. Everything is just bad. And then come out the people and keep you saying those things. And Jesus is like, hey, trust in me. I got you. There's something beautiful that you cannot see that is happening right now in the middle of this situation. I know it's hard, but it's something. It's happening right now. And that's what he's saying. Verse 4. You know the way to the place where I'm going. Now he said, I'm going somewhere. You're not going to be able to come. But now he's saying, you know the way where I am going. And it's interesting that he's not asking a question. He's making an affirmation. You know the way where I'm going. And then we have verse 5, which makes total sense to me. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? That's a valid question. So, and I was thinking about when Jesus tells us something, and it could be anything, you're forgiven, you're loved, you belong here, you're worthy. Do we really know what he's saying to us? Do we really know what he's saying? Sometimes he's just saying facts, truths. He's not asking us, do you know that you're loved? No, he's saying you are loved. But the question is, do we really know? Because then Thomas said, Jesus, we don't know where you're going. How do we know the way? It's Jesus, I don't see anything good in me. How are you saying that I'm beautiful and wonderfully made? Jesus, I don't see anything good in me. So how are you saying that I'm forgiven? Jesus, I don't feel that I'm a good place. But you're saying that you are making a home with me? Do we really know? And there's also this way of do we really believe what he's saying? You are my children. Do we really know that we are his children? Do we really act like people who know and believe those things that Jesus is saying? You are capable. Do we really know that we are capable of doing things? Do we really know? Or maybe we know, but we don't know. I was thinking about that. Maybe we don't know. We know it, but we don't know it. Somewhere, we know it. If we go and explore and take all the layers and the trauma and all the things that has happened in your life, you know that is true about you. But because all the things that has happened and all the blocks and things that you have experienced, you're I don't know. He's you know. I'm not asking you a question. I'm telling you, you know the way. And Thomas is how can we know the way? And then we have this world-known verse. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. Now, he answers the question. Thomas is asking, how do we know the way? And Jesus is saying, I am the way, Thomas. I am the way. And I like that he didn't answer with a set of rules, regulations, commandments. Like, you need to do this, and that's your way. You need to apply this in your life, and that's the way. You need to fulfill these commandments, and that is the way. You need to go to these particular activities, and you need to go to this particular church, and you need to sing this amount of songs, and you need to do this, and that is the way. I don't know, where did we get that from? Because Jesus said, I am the way. Simple, easy to remember, and that's it. I am the way. He doesn't give us a set of rules, regulations, commandments, ways, these kind of colors, this kind of no, he's just saying, I am what you need to get there. My words, my love, my sacrifice, my example is what you need to get to the Father. I am what you need. And how often do we find ourselves trying to find the way somewhere else? How often do we force ourselves to find the way to the Father in somewhere else that is not Jesus? How often are we encouraging other people to find the way in different places, and those places don't look like Jesus? How often are we in the midst of those situations encouraging people to go to this particular way, and that way doesn't look like Jesus? I am the way. How often do we create ways to get to the Father that are different than Jesus? How often do we add things that are different than Jesus? How often do we require things that were not taught by Jesus? How often and how much do we know Jesus? Because if He is the way, but we don't know Him, we might get lost. That's really likely to happen. If He is the way, but you don't know Him, and you know just what people is telling you, and what this group of people is telling you, and what you have heard from this and there, you might get lost really easily. How much do you know Jesus? How much do we know Jesus? Because He is the way, and also, then He says, and I am the truth. It's interesting because that was not Thomas' question. Thomas' question was, how do we know the way? Jesus says, I am the way and the truth. Why if He's saying the truth? That's not the answer. And in a way, what He's saying is like, I am the way, and what I'm saying is the truth, but I'm not just saying the truth, I am actually the truth. And you remember, I don't know if you remember Micah, when Micah said, you will show us your faithfulness and unfailing love. And that faithfulness is the same word that Jesus is using, I am your faithfulness. I am the faithfulness. That's what Jesus is saying in this verse. I am the way, and I am the truth. He is not just the way. He is not just the truth. He is not saying the truth. He is the truth. He is the answer when you feel confused. When you feel lost, when you feel that nothing doesn't make sense, that this is not clear, the message is not clear, what I'm receiving right now is not clear, well, the answer is Jesus, because He is the truth. I might be saying truth, I might be saying also lies, but you can find that if you go and learn about Jesus, because He is the truth. The only truth is going to come from Him. You can go and check on Him and find the truth. And that's where you need to go. He's the way, and He's the truth. He not only answered that, He says, and I am the life. Now, it's also interesting because what's happening in the context, it doesn't look like life. Like Judas is denying Jesus, is about to deny Jesus, to betray Jesus. Peter is about to deny Jesus. Jesus is actually about to die, and Jesus is saying, I am the life. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't look like, And it's also like, in a way, and Judas is about to kill himself, because after he betrayed Jesus, then he went and killed himself. Peter somehow is dying to himself when he's denying Jesus at that point. because he's like dead. I don't think he was just, he was not full of life at that moment. He probably felt really horrible. He probably felt like, I'd rather die at this point. Like, I'm denying Jesus, and then he did it again, and then he did it again. He was like, what's going on in my life? Nothing makes sense. And Judas is about to kill himself, and Jesus is walking on the cross, with the cross. Now, that's taking place at that circumstances, and Jesus is saying, I am the way and the truth, I am the life. And sometimes when we think about life, we think about something fun. You know, like that's not life for me. And when we see that kind of life, we feel frustrated and we don't want to follow that life because it doesn't look like life. But there was life happening at the time because there was resurrection, there was forgiveness, there was something going on at the same time. He is alive. They killed Jesus. Judas betrayed Jesus. And Peter denied Jesus because they were finding life in somewhere else that was not Jesus. Sometimes we bring fear and death to our lives because we're trying to find the way, the truth, and the life in somewhere else that is not Jesus. And how do you know that? Knowing Jesus. How do you know if you know Jesus? Go and check the Bible. Don't believe in me. Believe in him. That's what it says, the verse. Trust in God. Trust in me. Because they try to find meaning in somewhere else that was not Jesus. Sometimes we may feel like that. And the good question to ask at that point is, how off are we from Jesus? How off are we from what Jesus wants us to do at this point in life? How off are we leading people in a way that is not what Jesus wants? How off is my life that I'm not paying attention to Jesus and I'm paying attention to something else? Trying to find life in something, and then we feel lost. But when we feel off, when we feel that we're not in the right place, in the right way, in the midst of life, in the midst of death, in the midst of betrayal, we are just one step away to come back and be on the way. We're just one step away to come back. It's not too far. It's not too late. It's just the right time for you to come back and find the way in Jesus. How can you find Jesus? Well, Jesus is everywhere. You can find Jesus in the nature. You can find Jesus at the church. You can find Jesus at your house. You can find Jesus in your car. You can find Jesus when you're singing. You can find Jesus when you're crying. You can find Jesus when you feel full of people and connected to people. And you can find Jesus also when you feel alone. You can find Jesus in a song. You can find Jesus in silence. When life is good, when life is difficult, right now, you can find Jesus. Because he is the way and the truth and the life. God bless you.